State your name for the record.
Jin Urso.
Forgery of imperial documents, possession of stolen property, aggravated assault, resisting arrest.
On your own from the age of 15. Reckless, aggressive, and undisciplined.
This is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel.
We have a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know what it is and how to destroy it.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
What will you do when they catch you? What will you do if they break you? If you continue to fight? What will you become?
Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. My name is Mike, and I've got Jason here from Trench Run Rebels, and we're doing our Road to Rogue One. So this is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't read the book Catalyst yet, which is the prequel to Rogue One book, then you should probably hit pause, bookmark this, and come back after you've read Catalyst, unless you're not going to read Catalyst, which is what a lot of people probably won't read it before they go see Rogue One. Then you're fine to watch, and we'll actually get you caught up on what you need to know about these characters going into Rogue One. So I'm going to throw it over to Jason first to tell us what he thought was great about this book, Catalyst.
What I really liked about this book is how well that it laid a groundwork for these characters. Obviously, these being all new characters, we have no sense of who they are or what they're going to be on screen. This book, after having read it, I have a great sense of who I'm going to like and who I'm not going to like, and who I'm going to love to hate.
And for those of you who don't know what this book is about, it's basically the story of Galen Erso and Orson Krennic. So Orson Krennic is kind of the head of the Imperial, developing the new Death Star, and Galen Erso is the guy who is developing the weapon for the Death Star. So basically it's their backstories, and we see Galen's wife, what's her name, Lyra, and we see a young Jin, and we see, this book really takes us through the timeline. The book starts about a year into the Clone Wars, and it takes us right through Revenge of the Sith, and then about 2 years after Revenge of the Sith, I think is how the book lines up. And it goes back and forth through the timeline to when Jin's a young girl, or even when Jin's still in Lyra's belly.
Yep.
So
she's pregnant for quite a while.
Yeah. So tell me what really struck you about this book? Like what made this a must-read for you?
Well, again, just laying that character groundwork. Not knowing anything about it just from watching the trailers for Rogue One, this book did a fantastic job of developing Krennic.
Yeah.
His character is phenomenal. He's such a conniving, evil kind of person.
A master manipulator.
Manipulator, very much so, yes.
Yeah, because he's manipulating Galen. Galen thinks that he's developing a free source of clean energy. Is basically what it is, when really what they're trying to do is get him to suck out the power of the kyber crystals for the weapon on the Death Star. But he doesn't know this until much later on, after he's done a whole bunch of research. I like the fact that at the beginning of the movie he's testing on kyber crystals that aren't really kyber crystals, they're synthetic kyber crystals.
Yeah, I can't remember the name that they give them, but there's like two different types of crystals that aren't kyber crystals that they are working with, and they're finding that they're not doing what they need them to do.
Yeah.
What a kyber crystal can do.
And some of the great things about this book to me, and I'm going to get into the things I didn't like about this book because there was quite a few, but I love the fact that we see the first TIE fighter roll off the assembly line. Like, that's something I don't think we've ever seen in any of the Star Wars movies or the books, the origin of the TIE fighter.
Right.
So I really like that that was in this book. I like Lyra Erso. I think
Very much
she
so,
is
yeah.
a great character in this, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see much of her in Rogue One. I've got some predictions that we're going to do later on when we do our Rogue One predictions.
Okay.
I also really like that Saw Gerrera's in this. Because it's a really cool tie-back to the Clone Wars.
Okay.
And we know, what's the actor's name that's playing him in the movie?
Forrest
Whitaker.
Whitaker, yeah.
So Forrest Whitaker's playing Saw Gerrera. And I listened to the book on Audible. I think you did too,
Yes.
right? And the guy who does the Audible book, he did a really good impression of Forrest Whitaker when he was doing Saw. So I could really, I think that's what I liked about this book the most is I've got personalities to these characters walking in, but no spoilers.
Right.
What do you think?
I agree with you. I do have a lot of personalities. One of the key characters that I didn't really get a lot from in this book was Galen Erso. His character in this book seemed a little flat to me.
And stoic.
And yeah, very stoic.
Yeah.
But not really in an admirable way. Not something like, oh yeah, he's stoic, kind of hero that you got to cheer for. The character fell a little flat, but the development of Krennic's character and what we get of Lyra's character, I think, really carried the book.
Yeah,
for me.
I agree. And it's really funny because Jyn is a very small part in this book. Like, she's just kind of hanging around and, she's playing with her dolls. But the thing that I found neat was the last chapter, it was talking through her eyes. Like that last 13-minute chapter. They keep saying, Mommy says this, Daddy says this. They're telling the whole story at the end of the book, the last 13 minutes, all through her eyes, which I think they're setting up because she's the main character.
Right.
And what it does is it gives her fundamentals about how her parents saw the Empire, so how she sees the Empire. Because she even says at the end, well, Mommy doesn't like the Empire, Daddy doesn't like the Empire, Saw doesn't like the Empire. So, you know what? I don't think I like the Empire either.
Right.
And I think that goes back to all of us as kids. What we learn from our parents is kind of what our moral fibers become. Like, for example, my first movie in the theaters ever was Star Wars. So it really made me a big nerd growing up in the world. So I don't know what you thought about that last little bit where it was all kind of through her, what she was seeing.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I think the book ended, she was like 3 years old or 4 years old. She was pretty young.
Yeah.
And so like you said, it was through her eyes, but it was all pretty remedial thought process. So I thought it was neat, but again, just kind of setting up for Rogue One. One of the things I really liked about this book as well, and you can go back and bleep this out if you want to, but there were a lot of prequel characters in here.
No. I agree, and I like that too.
And
I told you the prequels are growing on me.
I love how the prequels exist, so and they're not shying away from them, and they're starting to tie it together. We had Masamida come in here, and he actually played quite a role. The Emperor was not present in this book, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're right. They talked about him.
They talked about him, but the character wasn't in there, and kind of Masamida almost replaced him just as his representative.
Yeah.
Right, and he's a nasty character.
I also like that they brought back the...
Poggle the Lesser.
Yeah, Geonosin.
Yeah.
The head Geonosin. That was pretty cool because we saw him in Attack of the Clones. And they talked about that battle and they talked about how he fell out of favor and went to jail. Or was he in jail or was he in hiding? I could never really figure that out. Like, he was in this dark cell.
I think he was in jail,
Okay.
and Krennic kind of was able to get him out of jail.
And basically, the Geonosins are the ones that built the Death Star, we find out in this. They get him out of jail, and he goes back to his homeworld, and he pretends he's working for at that time he would have been pretending he was working for the Republic.
Right.
But then he switches sides again, and he goes back to the Separatists.
Yeah.
But they're building the Death Star for the, at the time, Republic,
Right.
which turns into the Empire, because that's another thing I liked about this book, is they really showed how both sides, like the Emperor played both sides and got the Separatists.
No, very much so.
It was really neat. But I didn't love this book. I'm going to be honest.
For me, it was all about characters. For me, nothing really happened in this book. Nothing huge or substantial. Yes, we got all these kind of tying things together, and we got this great character development, but there wasn't like a huge event that happened.
No.
Where you're just like, oh my gosh, that blows you away.
And before we get into the did not likes, I'm going to just say the last thing that I really liked about this was the live chess game between Tarkin and Krennic. How they keep trying to up one each other for control of running the Death Star, because Krennic really wants it, right. Tarkin really wants it, and they keep, Tarkin's happy to let Krennic take the fall for some mistakes, and then Krennic does the same thing with Tarkin, and it's like a real life chess game with two players, and they're moving everybody around. So that I really liked about this book, because I think it's going to lend really well to that relationship we're going to see in Rogue One, where it's adversarial, and so reading the book helps me with that backstory.
Right. Again, the Krennic goes into his master manipulation on Tarkin, and he does a kind of a thing where he sends Tarkin off on this mission and kind of plays him. Tarkin picks up on it. He's not a fool. It'll be interesting to see how much we actually get to see Tarkin in Rogue One. I know there's been a lot of talk about doing a digital Peter Cushing, which
I think they'll use that actor
carefully.
They used at the end of Revenge of the Sith when they're looking at the Death Star.
Yeah,
I
he had
don't think
a lot
will be
of prosthetics
digital
on his face.
Yeah,
it was a little.
But
weird,
I bet you we only see Tarkin in holograms or voiceovers. Right. I don't think we're going to get a scene with him.
Right.
But I think there might be a lot of communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess, but I'll talk about that when we do our predictions.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. One of the things I did like was it gave us a lot of insight into how the Geonosians work.
Yes.
And they are... Pago the Lesser just kind of throws Geonosians at the workforce, and they're falling over and dying, and he doesn't care. They just, we've got more workforce. We just keep them coming. They're getting in your way. Get rid of them.
And they also talk about, which I liked, was the inner workings of a Geonosian's mind. Like, they are bred to be workers and fight each other for work. That's what they have to do. So after the Clone Wars, when that battle was over, they were all looking for something to do, and they were fighting amongst each other, and building the Death Star kind of gave them a purpose again, so that they could do what they do best, and that's work. Mm-hmm. So I like that we got a little bit into that too.
Actually, one question that came up for me, because I know that in this book, obviously, it shows the Geonosians working on the Death Star, and we're building the Death Star. There was an episode of Star Wars Rebels where the crew actually went to Geonosis, but there was no life on it anymore. And so it kind of makes me wonder, like, where that falls in the timeline, because this is happening, and the Death Star is being built, but then Rebels happens, and now Rogue One's going to happen. And
so again, they didn't explain it very well, and this is just me guessing. I think we're going to find out in Rogue One. But I think what happened because the reason, I don't know if you noticed in Rebels, most of the asteroid field was gone, because they mined the asteroid belt, like the rings around Geonosis, they mined those for all the parts of the Death Star. So that's why when the Rebels crew shows up, they're like, what happened to the rings?
Right.
And they don't know that they had mined those for all the parts in the Death Star and all the materials and the metals and that kind of stuff. But I think the first test of the Death Star weapon was on Geonosis, because they wanted to kill everybody so they couldn't get it out and let everybody know that there was a Death Star, because I don't think they were ready to reveal it yet. So that's my prediction, is that was the first test, because they said the planet wasn't destroyed. And I think we even see in one of the trailers for Rogue One,
we do see some destruction.
But it's not blowing up planets yet. Right. They haven't fine-tuned it. So I think, hey guys, thanks for building our Death Star. We don't quite have the weapon done yet, but let's give it a try anyway and kill you all.
Right.
That's my prediction from what I saw in Rebels. Okay. I don't know if you think that's plausible.
Yeah, it sounds plausible, definitely.
Okay.
And I guess that would kind of help it to fit in the timeline in my head, anyway. And
the other thing, I'm a little disappointed in Rebels right now, because we only have one episode left of Rebels coming up this Saturday, and it's the mid-season finale. And we still haven't seen any characters from Rogue One. They haven't teased anything about Rogue One. And I looked ahead to see what this episode about, and it's basically an Ezra Maul episode. So I was really
You
hoping.
thought that we were going to get some Rogue One in there?
I thought they were going to get something about Rogue One, because then we're like, what are we, 12 days away from going to see the preview?
Yeah, it's close. It's real close.
And so I thought for sure you get a little, I don't know, something. So maybe we will at the very end of the episode, and they're not talking about it, who knows. But I hope we do, because that's the great thing about Star Wars. They have the opportunity to tie these all in now.
Right. And I guess the only tie-in that I can think of is the Kyber Crystal. They did a little bit with Kyber Crystal in Rebels.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot. It was just one episode where they were transporting a big Kyber Crystal.
And they blew up the ship.
Ended up blowing the ship up, yeah.
Cool explosion, by the way.
Very cool explosion. Great effects on that. I think that's the only kind of tie-in that they had, which is another thing that I liked about that book. Me being a person that really likes the mystical side of Star Wars and liking the Force, and then them coming out and saying there's not going to be any Jedis in Rogue One, and the Force is
except for Darth Vader. Although he's not a Jedi
He's
anymore.
not a Jedi anymore, but yeah, there's not going to be a Jedi. There's going to be some bad guys that can use the Force. But in this book, we learned that Lyra has at least a Force sensitivity.
Yes.
And they do go a lot into the Kyber crystals and a little bit how they work. And
she can feel them.
She can sense them,
She can sense them, which leads into Chirrut Imwe. I think he's the same way. He's a Force sensitive. They can't use the Force, but they feel it. Like they probably have very, very small midi-chlorian count, just enough that they can feel what's going on. Yes, I use the word midi-chlorian. It's a dirty word, but I said I'm starting to like the prequels a little bit. So, but I think that's how they'll explain that.
Right.
And we'll probably find out after Rogue One. There'll be an after Rogue One book or something where you can read all the stuff that you want to find out.
Right. Well, it's interesting that they're using that Chirrut Imwe, and I think they've used the word Church of the Force or something to that effect. And that was the same with Max von Sydow's character in The Force Awakens. That whole crew was a Force church of some sort. It's interesting that they have this kind of Force kind of in the background. They're not really getting into it, but they know that it's still around and they still like worship it or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how the Kyber crystals play into Rogue One. We do get to see Lyra giving Jyn a Kyber crystal in one of the trailers. And it'll be interesting to see if she's wearing that throughout the show and if she has some sort of Force sensitivity herself.
I'm
just
guessing,
a sensitivity.
Yeah,
she's not going to.
I'm guessing not, but who knows? Maybe at the end she will.
Yeah, at least she has a respect for it because we do hear her say, "May the Force be with you," in the trailer, and I think she got that from her mom.
Yeah,
definitely.
So let's talk about the things we didn't like about this movie, this book.
Sure.
I'll start. I didn't like the fact that Galen was very naive. This is a super smart scientist. He's the one that figures out how to make the weapon for the Death Star, and yet Krennic plays him throughout this entire novel. There's this one point where I think he's going to get a realization about what he's actually doing this research for. It's not for clean energy. When Krennic says, like, he tells Krennic, I'm able to unleash this amazing power, but I can't control it. And he goes, oh, don't worry. No, get into that.
We'll control it. You just do
we
the
have
thing.
another set of scientists working on how to control it and suppress it. And he's like, well, okay then.
Yeah.
I'll do it. No, you know what?
Yeah.
If this guy's that smart, and I mean, maybe, scientists, they don't have that side of the brain working. Maybe they're just all book smart and not street smart. But come on.
Yeah.
I thought it was too convenient. I don't know what you think, but...
Well, again, that goes into how I kind of felt about Galen. The character seemed a little flat. And yeah, it's definitely, he was an incredibly intelligent scientist, and his brain was always doing these calculations, and he was, he kind of had his own language almost. He would write his notes, and nobody could read them except for Lyra. So he was definitely dealing with that purely scientific kind of part of the brain. And I think... You could say that Krennic was playing into that.
Oh yeah,
and saying, "I'll set you up with this great lab, and you can do whatever you want. And you don't have to answer to anybody, and it's going to be great." And he soaked that up, and then he got to dive into his work. And then once he was completely dived into his work, then his social skills kind of went out the window. And Lyra could see that, hey, this guy's playing you. this he's playing me. He's sending me off on these little side missions so you can get into your work deeper. But yeah, it kind of fell flat for me, Galen. And I maybe getting to a little prediction. I don't think that we're going to see a ton of Galen.
No, I don't
in
either.
Rogue One. I think he'll be kind of the MacGuffin, or the Death Star plans. Galen, those are going to be the MacGuffin of the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of him.
The other thing that I didn't like about this book is that it's a book. It is, I think, what is it, like 18 hours
Yeah,
to get through this book? And I think they could have done it in 6 hours.
Yeah.
There's so much exposition and describe. I think they spent 5 minutes describing a streetscape on, what was it, on Coruscant. And I'm just like, oh my God, now I remember why I hate reading books. I wanted to fast forward so bad. I actually turned it on to 1.25 so it was reading faster.
Oh, yeah.
So that I could actually get through this book in, I think it was 14 hours instead of 18 hours. Again, I'm not a reader. I like movies. I like TV shows. I like how compacted they are and they get so much across in such a little time. I don't need that level of detail.
Right.
But I don't know if that's this book or just any book. What did you think? Like, did they drag it out?
There were some dry parts, and being that I'm listening to it while I'm driving or while I'm working or doing something, I definitely know there were parts where I tuned out.
Yeah.
You know, and they're talking about this blah, 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 and you just kind of get lost in it. Being that it's a book, though, and they can go deeper, I think that did a lot better job of informing Krennic. We got to get inside his head a little bit and see how he's playing people, see how he's manipulating people. I don't think that'll come across as strong on screen, but having this book, I think we'll be able to pick up on the actor's subtleties, how he's playing that character. I think it's going to read a lot more for us knowing who he is.
And then the last thing that I really didn't like about this book was they formed this strategic advisory cell and then have them all sign the official Secrets Act. I'm sorry, but you're building this giant Death Star, and there's so many workers working on this, and people delivering things, and ships going in and out of the Geonosian system. And what's the difference if you get these 10 politicians on this council to sign a secret act? That, to me, was just trying to play a little bit of the politics of Star Wars, and I think it was completely unnecessary.
The politics of Star Wars is where it gets dry. I mean, that's obviously a big problem that a lot of people had with the prequels. That it did.
But I didn't mind
political.
the politics in Bloodline, the book Bloodlines. That was okay. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Bloodlines.
That's the Princess Leia one?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
So I didn't mind the politics. I can handle politics if they're done right. I don't know. And I didn't even mind some of the politics in the prequels. Like, I thought it was really great storytelling for some of it. I'm not too fond of the Phantom Menace opening crawl, where it's like all this stuff about politics. I don't think that's the way you start a Star Wars movie.
And,
But I just didn't think it was believable that this little group of the Emperor's puppets in the Senate were getting together and forming this because they had stole the plans from the Separatists for the Death Star. Because the Separatists, Dooku actually has the plans for the Death Star, and he hands them over to the Emperor, and then the Emperor makes up the story about how they got them from the Separatists. And I don't think it was necessary. I think that would have been enough of a story, but that's just me.
Which that goes a little inside baseball for some of the prequels, because we do see in the prequels Pog the Lesser hands the Death Star plans over to Dooku, and then Revenge of the Sith we see Palpatine in his office looking at the Death Star plans. So we do get a little bit of that transition there, and I think they just kind of wanted to throw a little backstory into that.
And that makes sense.
As far as the that signing the secret pact, I think it's just to keep those guys with their lips sealed. But you're right. You have all these transport guys coming in and out, delivering things, and all these work. It's going to get out there, right?
It's going to get out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you can't keep an office secret about who's sleeping with who, you're not going to keep a Death Star secret for very long.
Yeah, exactly. It's too big of a deal.
So that's really my take on the book. Do you have anything you want to add to the book before we rate this book out of 10?
We're rating out of 10. Okay. No, again, just I did a fantastic job of building some of the characters, but it fell a little flat, and there wasn't a whole lot that happened. But still, I immensely enjoyed this book because I know in 2 weeks it's going to do a lot for me watching Rogue One.
And I honestly, with the exception of about an hour of this book, I don't think I needed to read it. I think I would have enjoyed Rogue One just as much. Because I don't think Galen's going to be in the movie much, and I mean Orson Krennic, sure, but I'll talk about him when we get to our Rogue One predictions. But I don't think I needed it. I'm happy I did it, but I'm never going to get back those 16 hours. So
No, you won't.
So do you want me to go first, and I'll rate this book? So I like a lot of the Star Wars books. I want to preface by saying that. I really liked Lords of the Sith. I really liked Bloodlines, A New Dawn. I'm right in the middle of reading Ahsoka. So I do like these books. But this one fell a little flat for me. So I think I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. It's just above that I'd still read it. I'd still recommend it as a read. Because if it was below 5, then I'd say don't bother. But I've read way better Star Wars books.
There certainly wasn't a lot of the action that you typically see in a Star Wars film or even a book. There's typically a lot more action. There'll be a big battle scene or a big, huge confrontation. And all those battles and confrontations, they were, like you were saying, kind of chess games.
Yes.
Right? So it didn't have the action. I really enjoyed the character development. I really enjoyed what it did for me for Krennic, and I enjoyed what it did for me for Lyra. And I think some of Lyra is going to bleed off into Jyn. Jyn's going to be a lot more Lyra than she is Galen.
Absolutely.
And I enjoyed those aspects of the book. Yes, they were from very dry times. Good thing I was working on something to keep my mind busy. I think I would go a little bit higher, and I would probably do it about 6.5.
Okay, that makes sense.
6.5. I think for myself, I did get a lot out of it, so I enjoyed listening to it.
All right, well, we want to hear what you had to say about Catalyst. Please go into the comments section below. Let us know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you would score it out of 10. And now, before we end this video, we're going to do a little Rogue One prediction, see who gets closer to what this movie goes through. And again, we're going to see this movie 2 Thursdays from now. So we get to see it on Thursday opening night before the Friday. And we're going to come back here to the studio right after the movie. We're going to tape our non-spoiler review, then our spoiler review. But we're going to post the non-spoiler review immediately. It should be up Thursday night at around 1 in the morning. So you guys can watch it Friday morning. We won't give away any spoilers. Then on Sunday night or Monday morning, I'm not sure when it'll go up, but we'll put up the spoilers review so you can see what we think of the whole movie. But right now, we're going to do some Rogue One predictions. So I made some notes for myself. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So every main character in this movie will die except for Vader and Tarkin. I think the entire Rogue One crew is going to be dead. Saul will be dead. Jyn will be dead. Cassian's going to be dead. K2SO is going to get blown up or reprogrammed. They'll take him over and reprogram him, and he'll just become a Imperial droid or something. I think they're all going to die. I also think that when we see at the end of Catalyst, Saw gives the Ursos a card. What did they call it? A comm card. So that she can contact them if they ever need help from Saw again. So I think that's how the movie's going to open. I think that it's Krennic finding Galen, Jyn, and Lyra on that planet where they went to hide. And I think that Lyra is going to take Jyn and try to run through the field or something, and she's going to get shot and killed right in the opening scene. I think we lose Lyra in the first 3 minutes of the movie. They capture Galen, but Jyn gets away with the comm card. They take Galen away. Jyn calls Saw, and I think in this movie that she'll start out at about the age of 12, 13, something like that. And I think Saw is going to raise her the rest of the way, and then we're going to jump forward to her being 21, and then I think what we're going to see is the rebels capture Jyn, and they're going to say, we got a message from your dad, Galen. Galen sent a message. I think we saw that in the trailer, so that's no big surprise. And Galen is going to somehow have told them there's some secret plans to the Death Star, and I think he'll be responsible for that exhaust port somehow. I know he's not designing the Death Star, but I think he'll say, oh, well, it needs some kind of an exhaust port when we fire this weapon, and then, I need you to design it this way because it needs to come out fast. I think we'll find that out in Rogue One, that he's responsible for that weakness in the Death Star. I also think that Vader is going to wind up killing Galen and Krennic at the behest of Tarkin. I think Tarkin's going to give him an order and say, kill these guys because we don't need them anymore. And Krennic's responsible for Galen getting these plans out, so Vader mows him down with the lightsaber. I'm hoping that happens anyway because I want to see Vader kill as many people as possible in this movie with his lightsaber. And at the end of this movie, I think we're going to have another 3-tiered battle like we did in Return of the Jedi. I think we're going to have, and these are my predictions, that there's going to be a beach battle with Chirrut, Baze, and Saw. So they'll be on the ground fighting the ground forces. I think we're going to have an infiltration to get the plans with Cassian, Jyn, and K2SO. And then I think Bodhi is going to be leading a team of X-Wing pilots attacking the shield. We saw in one of the trailers there's a shield surrounding the planet where they're building the final part of the Death Star so nobody can get into the plant, and I think there'll be an attack on the shield to try to get the shield down so that they can go in and destroy this. So I think we're going to get an incredible 20-minute battle scene at the end of this. I don't know where Vader will fit in, whether he'll be on the beach mowing people down with his lightsaber, or if he'll be in his TIE fighter blowing up X-Wings, or both. Maybe he'll start out in his TIE fighter, then land, get out, and it'll be even cooler. But I think that's pretty much how it's going to go. Then they'll get the plans to the Death Star, but Jyn and Captain Andor and K2SO are somehow going to get caught, but get the plans to someone else, so we don't know, who will then take the plans to Leia. And we might even see that ship approaching Leia's ship.
Yeah, the Tantive V.
Yeah, and I think that might be how they end it. He goes inside, it closes up, roll Rogue One credits. So I think that's a basic overall of how I think this movie's going to go. What do you think?
Okay. I don't know that everyone's going to die. If you watched Celebration, someone had a slip of the tongue, and we do know one character that's going to die.
Yeah.
For sure. I won't say anything if you haven't seen that. I think there are going to be some deaths, definitely. But the Star Wars universe is big, right? So I do think that we're going to have some of these characters survive this, just so they're out there. And people say, well, they were never in the originals. Well, there's a lot of people that weren't in the originals. You see all those people in the background.
They might have fled to the Outer Rim. They might have been, who knows?
They might have been still there. They're just not our heroes. The camera wasn't focused on them. I think we do have to have a couple of main guys die to kind of make it a bigger sacrifice, certainly. And I don't think that Krennic is going to survive either.
I don't think...
Him and Tarkin don't get along, and I'm kind of hoping to see a choke out. Vader's going to choke him out. I agree that Vader's going to choke him out.
That would be cooler, because that's what he did in New Hope, where he choked out the officers.
Just take a...
But I hope he cuts off Galen's head. I want to see at least one of them die by the lightsaber.
You want to see an appendage go flying?
Yes.
I don't think that Galen's going to make it either.
He'll die sacrificing himself to get the plans to Jyn so she can get away.
Yeah, and maybe that's
something.
the honorable thing that he'll do that will kind of give his character
redemption.
A little something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we do see in the trailer, Jyn running across the beach with the plans.
Yeah.
So in your 3-tiered thing, maybe those 3 tiers start to intertwine and then
at the end
come to some sort of head. Kathleen Kennedy has said that there's not going to be a sequel to this movie.
That was a definitive.
But I think that they can kind of get away with something if they do like a Rogue 2. Here's the Bothans story, right? And many Bothans died to bring us the plans for the second Death Star.
But it's still not going to be called Rogue One or Rogue 2. It'll be a completely different episode.
So it won't be a direct sequel, but I think it'll still fall in the same flavor of this movie.
I think if they did that, though, it would be 10 years from now, because they have so many other stories to tell.
There's a lot of stories to tell. There's some weird weird talk coming out of the camps there, and it's so far down the line that I don't think it's on their plate. But they're talking about after they do the saga movies, the Skywalker storyline, what are they going to do then? And Kathleen Kennedy said, well, we have enough stories just to do nothing but spin-offs if we wanted to. And then people started to kind of freak out about that. But they're making so much money off of the saga films, there's no way that they're going to get away from them.
I think they might take a few years off, though. I think so that we have that
Possible.
anticipation again, like we did for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I think they might take 4 or 5 years off, something like that, so that gives Rey and Finn and all those guys a chance to age a little bit, the actors, so that we catch up with them later and it's a little bit of an older story.
Sure.
So I could see that possibly happening.
And if they're using the Marvel model at all, they can start introducing different characters into these standalone movies that could eventually come into play.
Have their own saga.
Or come into play with Rey and Finn and Poe, kind of work them back into the storyline just to give it that play. Back to this movie, though. I think that some of the characters are going to survive. I couldn't say which ones. I have trouble seeing them killing off Jyn.
Oh, I know she's dying.
Really?
I put $1 million on that.
Really?
Jyn will die in this movie. The ultimate sacrifice. That's what they're going to do it for, that big payoff, so that we know she sacrificed her life to get these plans. Oh, absolutely, Jyn's dead.
I think
She'll die in the last 5 minutes of the movie.
in the original cut of the movie that maybe she did, because there was this whole thing where they brought in this entire team of filmmakers to make a gritty war movie. And I think originally the first cut came in, and that's what they made. They made a Saving Private Ryan in Star Wars world. But then they said, well, you know what? We just made $2 billion off of this family-friendly Force Awakens. It's got some dark things in it, but it's family-friendly. Let's back this up a little bit.
All that's going to change is, instead of us seeing a big lightsaber dent in Jyn's head like in the war movie, she'll just die peacefully, no blood on her face, she'll have gotten shot or something. They'll just tone it down, but she's dying for sure.
I'm taking my kids to see this movie, and having my kids sit there and watch all of the heroes die, I don't think that they're going to do it. Definitely, there will be some people that die to make that sacrifice. I can't see them killing off the entire crew. And Jyn being the star of the movie, I can't see them killing off Jyn.
Well, we'll find out in 12 days.
Yes. As far as box office goes, there's been a lot of talk about I think they're saying $120, $130 million first weekend.
Oh, I think it's going to be higher. I think we're going to get to 155, 160.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of thinking too. I was thinking in the 150 area. It's not going to do the box office that Force Awakens did, but I don't think that's a measure of its failure or its success.
Oh, well, 150 million, it's no chump change. I mean, when we had Doctor Strange opening weekend, I think it was 88 million, and they considered that a huge success.
Right.
So to get Rogue One to 100, even 130 million is a huge success.
Right. You get some of the journalists start talking about how, it's got such a high mark to reach to get to compare to Force. It's not a Skywalker story.
No.
We don't have Han Solo. We don't have Luke Skywalker. We don't have Princess Leia. All these people that we grew up with. This is brand new Star Wars. It's a bit of a gamble on Lucas's film part, but we've got Darth Vader. We've got
And there's nerds like me who are going to go see it 5 times.
I've already got 3 pairs of tickets.
Yeah, and I've got 2. So, I mean, the Star Wars fans are still going to see this in droves. And if we start telling our friends, oh, yeah, it's a great movie, they're going to go once. And it's just going to be like The Force Awakens was. But Force Awakens, I think, finished at $2.1 billion.
Yeah.
I think this one will finish around $900 million, somewhere in there.
Worldwide?
Yeah, worldwide. Really? I think it'll be just like half of what The Force Awakens did.
I think it'll break... Worldwide, I think it'll break $1 billion. I think we'll probably land in the 1.2, 1.3 region. So it's not going to get into the all-time movies
like Avatar,
Titanic, or even like Jurassic World did 1.6 billion, something like that. I don't think it's going to get in that neighborhood, but it's going to break $1 billion. It's going to be a phenomenal movie. I
hope it's going to be a phenomenal movie.
Yes, cross your hearts. I don't think that it has the same appeal as Force Awakens, because Luke and Han and Leia, they're not in there. So that brought in people that aren't Star Wars fans.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That brought in a lot of people. And still, even with all the marketing that they've done for this movie, I still have people in my own family, my extended family, that think that that's Rey.
Oh yeah,
on screen.
I've had to tell so many people at work what this movie's about, where it ends in the timeline. Actually, Jedi Council and Collider Video did an amazing 5-minute video that explains exactly where this is. So go to Collider Video, check out the Rogue One in 5 minutes, gives you everything you need to know before you go see this movie. And if anyone's asking you the question, rather than having to explain it to them, show them that video. Because anyone can watch a 5-minute video to find this out. It was the best thing I've seen done in explaining the timeline.
Well, that's good. I haven't seen that. I'd like to.
As soon as we're done this, I'll pull
Not
it
that I'm
up for
confused
you.
about where it's at, but I'm interested to see it, yeah.
So, any last comments about Rogue One before? Because the next video we do will be the Rogue One review.
I know that this weekend they had a major press junket for Rogue One, and a lot of journalists got to see I think 28 minutes of this movie, and a lot of people are talking about K2SO, which
back in our droids
episode, he made my top 10, and I predicted that he's going to be one of the breakout stars of this film.
You had him at 5.
I had him at 5.
And you think he's going to go higher, was your prediction?
Yeah, I think that he's going to...
And we're going to find that out too, if that happens.
They're talking about him. The journalists are talking about him. They're saying that he's the breakout star.
I know it'll make him go on my list, but I don't know where yet.
I'm excited to see how it's going to play out. And it's interesting, and I think going back to the book just real quick, originally when we first started seeing the trailers for this, me again being a mystical Star Wars guy, a Force guy, I was still going to watch this movie a bunch of times, but I wasn't really drawn into it. But just having that little bit of Force background with Lyra and the Kyber crystal stuff is enough to kind of really get me excited to see where they play that. I know it's not going to be in the forefront. There's just going to be little hints of it here and there, but that's enough for me.
And as soon as I heard Darth Tiberius Vader was going to be in this movie, I was sold.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even need to see a trailer, and I knew this was going to be a movie for me.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to go back to the original trilogy timeline, and having Darth Vader, and having original stormtroopers, and having just that Warren Universe feel again, right? We did get obviously Warren Universe feel in Force Awakens, but having it set in the Death Star timeline, and we know that Palpatine's going to be kicking around, whether we see him or hear him.
Yeah, well, I think we'll hear him, but
we'll
I
get
don't
a little
think
hologram or something of him, and see what they do with Tarkin. I know the guy that does Tarkin on the Clone Wars. He does a fantastic job of simulating Peter Cushing. So even if they brought him in as a voiceover artist and had the digital recreation, or that other actor that they had in Revenge of the Sith, we might get a little bit of Tarkin. It's exciting to see all these old characters back.
All right, folks, so let us know in the comments section what your Rogue One predictions are. Let us know if you think either of ours are right. And I'm going to throw the show back to you to tell the good people where they can find you on the social media stuff.
Sure. Hit me up on Instagram at Vintage Star Wars. You can follow me there, message me, interact with me, whatever. Hate me, love me.
And you can find me, email movieguySciFi@gmail.com, or on Twitter at movieguySciFi. So thanks again for being on the show, Jason. I can't wait for 12 days to go see Rogue One and do another show with you. And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.